So my next thing I was going to talk about was grading the Ohio State position groups in this game. So I was going to grade Ohio State by going from quarterback to safety and just talk about each and every position. So in this game, obviously the only quarterback that played for Ohio State was Will Howard. Will Howard threw the ball 24 for. Turn my volume up. Okay, sorry. Is that any better, Dave? I don't know if how quickly how quickly you can respond, but let me know if that's any better. All right, I'll start this over. So for quarterback in this game, Will Howard was the only one. Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Dave. Will Howard was the only one that played quarterback for Ohio State. He was 24 for 33, 289 yards, one touchdown, one interception. Overall, he also ran the ball 7 times for 4 yards. One or two of those with sacks. Overall, with Will Howard, I was pretty well impressed in this game. Felt like he did a good job. He did force the throw to Jeremiah Smith. We talked about that a little bit on the takeaways. So I didn't love when he did that, but overall, like I think he played a good game for the Buckeyes. I felt like he was a leader. Felt like he was in control of himself for most of the game, and some of those passes were dropped. We talked about those. Some of those passes were dropped. Those were difficult. Those were hard to deal with, obviously. So, you hate to see that, but he was able to get through that stuff, and then he was able to have the drive at the end of the game, getting down the field and being able to still make a difference for his team. So I definitely liked that he was able to do that. And then as far as I'm concerned, like the whole running and everything, I made the joke about him not being able to stay upright. But overall, like Will Howard did what he had to do to win the game. He didn't do anything spectacular. This wasn't like the Oregon game where he was just kind of dealing and doing everything he wanted, like doing whatever he wanted. He did what he had to do to win the game. And as far as I'm concerned, if you do that, I'm going to give you a B. So I'm going to give you a B for that one. Dave says, how the heck did Texas not know that he was in the quarterback sneak? It was on the 4th and 2 play. Even I knew that was going to happen. Yeah, I mean, they put those wide receivers out wide, and I think Texas was just so concerned with the wide receivers all game. They were like, okay, we'll put a safety in the box, and the safety, or maybe the safety and the linebacker, will be able to take care of if they hand it off or something. But I think they just didn't want the wide receivers to beat them, and so they put everything out there to make sure they were paying attention to them. And then Will Howard runs it up the middle. And I think it was just a fantastic run by Will Howard, and it was very well blocked by the offensive line. I think they had hat for hat, especially in that run game with the quarterback. You don't lose a hat in those situations. And that was one of the reasons why guys like Urban Meyer made such a living off of running their quarterback, is because you would have everybody blocking, and there would only be one guy loose and one guy that was the quarterback. When you're handing it off, you automatically lose that quarterback, so you're down one more guy. So you run the ball like that. QB power, Will Howard is as big as he is. It sets it apart. So Brian Myers says, did it sound like Herbie was drinking to anyone else among others? He kept calling Judkins Junkins. I've heard people call him Jenkins, Junkins all year long. So Herbie's just going through whatever everybody else is going through. So either Herbie was drunk and everybody else was too, but I think sometimes you're talking so much. Honestly, this game I didn't even notice Herbie as much as I usually do. So next year I think I'm just gonna watch the McAfee. Actually, in the national championship game, I might just watch that McAfee cast over everything else, because that seems to be the most entertaining one. Yes, John. Early opening line, OSU minus 9.5 versus Notre Dame. We'll talk about that at the end. Thank you for bringing that up. I saw that on FanDuel. So yeah, and Dave says, and him tripping on the turf actually helped Ohio State. It took some of the time off the clock. That's just a great drive by Ohio State. It was, and it was just exactly what they needed in that moment. I do agree that maybe the trip did help them. Obviously, in that moment, you're not thinking that because you want to score. But with hindsight 2020, that they did score, took more time off the clock, and obviously Texas was pressing a little bit there at the end, and when they were trying to throw the ball, and that's how Jack Square got the strip sack and was able to win the game for the Buckeyes. Next position, running backs, B plus. Trevion Henderson, I'm giving them a B plus. Trevion Henderson, he had 6 carries for 42 yards. Quinshon Judkins had 9 carries for 36 yards. Trevion Henderson did have the catch for 75 yards. That was a touchdown. And then Quinshon Judkins also had 3 catches for 22 yards in this one. So altogether, all-purpose yards for the running backs, you had 117 for Henderson, and then you had quick math 36 and 22. You had 58 for Henderson. So altogether, that's nearly 200 yards. Receiving and rushing together. Like I said, B plus. There was some stuff I thought could have been better. I did think you weren't running the ball well enough at times. Trevion did have 7 yards per carry. Quinshon only had 4, but some of that is also just with how they were using him at the goal line and stuff like that. So, I didn't think it was like anything spectacular, but what I did love that maybe should put it up to an A minus and how those guys were blocking. Quinshon Judkins had the amazing block on the Trevion Henderson run. Trevion Henderson, he had some good pass blocking as well. Quinshon Judkins, he was just ready to hit somebody every single time he was out there on the field, whether he had the ball in his hand or not. He was getting ready to hit somebody, and I love that kind of mentality out of the players. So B plus, maybe A minus is what I'd go with for Ohio State, or for the running backs of Ohio State. Wide receivers, honestly, guys, like this is probably gonna be the lowest ranking on the offense for Ohio State because they just had the drops, right? Like if Jeremiah Smith or Emeka Ibuka was able to pull in one of those deep balls, I know they weren't the best throws by Will Howard. They were kind of outstretched going up for it. But still, those balls hit you in the hands. Like, as far as I'm concerned, you got to catch those. So, Ohio State, their wide receivers struggle with catching the ball. Carnell Tate drops the touchdown pass. Emeka Ibuka drops the first down as well. Those are tough situations. So I'm actually going to give the wide receivers a B minus. Obviously, they had a good day. Carnell Tate was the leading receiver, 87 yards. Emeka Ibuka was next with 51 yards. But Jeremiah Smith only had 1 catch for 3 yards. Like, I know they were taking him away all game. I just talked about that. But as far as I'm concerned, like, it is what it is. You got to be honest with the grade. So Dave asked, did Ohio State fans chant SEC, or is Texas not obnoxious as Tennessee about it, so they don't do it? Or did ESPN try to block it? ESPN, they do try to block things if it's embarrassing sometimes. I do think you're correct in that, Dave. I did not hear the SEC. I don't know. I think there was just so much on the SEC stuff for the Tennessee game just because of all the talk and everything. At this point, I don't even know if the SEC is that big of a talking point because we just all know they're not as good as the Big Ten, right? We just all know it. So, like, I'm with you, Dave. I would have loved to hear them chanting SEC like they did at the Tennessee game. But at this point, it's like the ultimate disrespect where it's like, we're not even going to acknowledge that we're going to chant it. Maybe they did and I just didn't hear it. But if they didn't, yeah. And I'm with Brian Myers. Texas doesn't feel like an SEC team. Yeah, it's their first year in there. They don't feel like it as much. But they are. They are. I think there were some SEC fans that were like, we're not cheering for them yet because they don't deserve it yet, which I thought was funny. So, Brian says, can't wait to see the SEC shorts. Should be pretty good. They do a lot. That's my favorite part of the SEC is the SEC shorts. They have some really good videos that they do. Tight ends. I will give tight ends a B for this game. Will Kazmarek came up with some clutch catches for them. I liked that he was able to do that. G. Scott had the good catch. I think it was like a 7-yard gain or something in this one. I think those were the only catches by tight ends. Oh, G. Scott had 5 catches. All right, so I'm missing some. But he had 5 targets, 5 catches. So G. Scott, able to do that. So that's good for them. But as far as I'm concerned, like tight ends for me, I felt like they had a good game, so I'm going to give them a B. Dave, I'll get to your comment in just 1 second after I do the offensive line. The offensive line for Ohio State, I'm going to give them a B as well. They weren't able to run the ball as well, and they were getting pressure on Will Howard, but I felt like that play when Will Howard ran the ball up the middle, it was just so open for him. Now, part of that is because there weren't very many players in the box, but they just blocked that really well. I thought that was great. I thought they were able to run the ball at times when they needed it. Ohio State had a rushing success rate of just about 50% in this game. Texas's was only 33. So if you're able to have success in the running game 50% of the time, I feel pretty good about that. So there's not a ton of rushing yards for Ohio State, but that's also because they only ran the ball with Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson 15 times combined. So they weren't really running the ball a whole lot, but they were able to still make plays and make things happen. So, yeah, and Dave's right. The Texas defensive line is really good. Yeah, and they're fresh too. That's the biggest thing about the Texas defensive line is how much they rotate those guys and how fresh they stay. And I think that's why you saw the dominance of the defensive line start to happen in the second quarter because of how much they were rotating guys in. That was really when it started to show, and Ohio State's offensive line was starting to get tired. So, yeah. Dave also says, I hate to tell you this, but I'm going to be a huge Notre Dame fan on Monday. I've had family members and friends that went to Notre Dame, and I've been to a lot of Notre Dame games. Hey, Dave, I get it. No worries. I was just saying before, I feel like I never really hated Notre Dame. I just wasn't a big Brian Kelly fan. So, you know, I kind of view Notre Dame as a little bit of a Big Ten honorary member at this point. I feel like it's inevitable that they will join the Big Ten at some point, whether they want to or not. But it's going to happen at some point. So you know what? Might as well start embracing them now. So yeah, Montana says, "Okay, we back." I apologize. I hit the end button instead of the leave button by accident. So yeah, we're back. All right, let's get to the defensive grades. These are going to be much better. D line, I give an A to the D line of Ohio State in this one. JT Tuimoloau got injured, went out of the game. He was able to come back. He was still very disruptive. Wasn't able to get any sacks when he came back, but was still very disruptive. Good for him. Jack Sawyer, obviously, with the strip, the fumble at the end of the game to seal the game. So great job by him there. And Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton, the interior guys on the defensive line. I mentioned the rushing stat. The rushing success rate stat on the Ohio State Voice of College Football channel show, like you don't see a ton of stats from the defensive tackles, and sometimes they don't always get the love that they deserve because of that. But when you're able to get a team sub 40, around in the 30s of rushing success rate, that's pretty darn good for a defense to be able to do that. So I think huge shout out to the interior of that defensive line. I just felt like they were big all game. Texas, their only time they were really able to get success running the ball is when they were trying to get to the outside, when they were trying to run stretch, when they were doing pitch plays, all that kind of stuff. That was really the only time they had success because the defensive line of Ohio State just wasn't letting them have success. So great job by them. Linebackers for Ohio State, I know like there were a lot of good plays like Sonny Styles made and Cody Simon. He's the other linebacker that starts for Ohio State. Like they had some good plays, but I don't know that drive when Ohio State just let the running backs kind of catch everything and really go down the field against them. I gave the linebackers a C plus. Maybe I'm being too strict. You guys let me know, but I'm going to give the linebackers a C plus because the way I look at it, like that drive was almost completely on the linebackers that they were able to score. So outside of that, I felt like the linebackers played well. Sonny Styles had a huge hit on Gunnar Helm that knocked the ball out. That was huge. So they definitely deserve a lot of credit too. I don't know. Maybe I should go with like a B or a B minus or something like that. But I can't get that. I can't get that drive out of my mind. Montana agrees with me. Linebackers get a C plus. Okay, I'll keep it a C plus. Cornerbacks B minus. And I'm not, thinking about how good the Texas wide receivers are as much because they are good wide receivers. Matthew Golden leaving, that was that was huge. That Texas wasn't able to do as much once he left the game, but there was just a lot of holding, a lot of stuff on the outside. Felt like they could have done a better job. Jermaine Matthews there at the end, he gets caught up with a holding. Good amount of penalties there in the secondary, and I felt like Texas. That was really when they found some success in the fourth quarter when they were able to get it out to the receivers a little bit more. And I felt like that was on the cornerbacks a little bit. So, and yes, Brian Myers. Downs, he played really well. My safeties, not the cornerbacks, my safeties, I am also giving an A2. Lathan Ransom did have the missed tackle on the running back, but that he's open in open field like that. That's really hard to stop a guy. So I'm not going to hold that against him too much. But yeah, Downs on that pitch play, the way he was able to penetrate the offensive line, get to the running back. He didn't make the tackle technically, but he did trip up the running back and give time the rest of the defense to swarm and get to the running back. So that was huge. Caleb Downs with the interception at the end of the game. And then Caleb Downs, such a big name that Gunnar Helm tries to point at him after he gives him a stiff arm, and he gets a penalty for it. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Did you guys think that was justified? The penalty, the unsportsmanlike conduct when the Texas player, points at Caleb Downs after he threw him down with the stiff arm. I thought it was a little ticky tack, but you know, Mike said he also thought he saw them talking about being a little chippy and being a little, you know, extracurricular with their activities. So maybe they were trying to shore up that stuff. So I get it, but you know, if I was a Texas fan, I'd have been pretty upset about that. Yeah, Terry says ticky tack. So Dave says there was a lot of unsportsmanlike calls in that game. It hurt both teams. And there were, yeah. The Austin Seyerveld one is one I talked about. So yeah, I couldn't blame Texas fans if they were complaining about that. Didn't really matter. I think that was the next play when Matthew Golden had the big catch on the sideline. So it didn't really matter. But yeah, if I was a Texas fan, I wouldn't have been too happy at that. So Terry says he pointed to the middle of the field. Oh, I thought he looked like he was pointing at Caleb Downs. Maybe I saw it wrong. But yeah, I thought he was pointing directly at Caleb Downs, which people are going to do that because they know how big of a name Caleb Downs is. So, yeah. And yeah, Brian Myers, the unsportsmanlike, that one was justified. That was justified on Trevion Henderson.